My beloved child, I have seen every time you held your breath, waiting for a message, for an explanation, and then the way your heart sank when silence itself became the only reply. I have watched you defend that person, torment yourself, just to preserve a relationship that has already been rotting from the inside. My heart aches, not because you are weak, but because you placed your precious heart into the hands of someone who never knew how to cherish it. While I have been quietly doing everything I could to pull you back from that edge, I do not blame you for trusting the wrong person, because your heart was created to love and to trust. But I do not want to see your soul continue to be drained dry in the arms of someone who only knows how to exploit and betray you. Today I call you to step out of that dark entanglement and transfer your trust away from a human heart that keeps changing, to place it entirely in me, the only one who can lead you out of every shadow. Do you remember the story of Samson? That mighty hero entrusted the deepest secret of his life to Delilah, a woman who treated love as nothing more than a snare with which to sell him out. He placed all his trust in sweet words, only to be stripped of his strength, bound in chains, his eyes put out, and turned into a spectacle for his enemies. Yet precisely when Samson had lost every support, when everything he had clung to in human beings had collapsed, he lifted his eyes and cried out to the Lord one last time. And I, the Lord, gave him a new strength, not so he could go back and find Delilah, but so he could break his chains and bring a dark chapter of his life to a close. You see, human betrayal is not the final full stop. It is a door opening for you to recognize who is the only one truly worthy of receiving your complete trust. You too are like Samson, living out another version of that story. You are not bound with ropes, but you are tied up by promises that are never kept. Your eyes are not covered with cloth, but your vision has grown dim with tears, and with all the times you have told yourself, things will get better. You have built an entire world on sweet words, on half-hearted apologies, on fleeting moments of tenderness, and then chosen to look away from all the times that person twisted the truth, blamed you, withdrew, and betrayed you. You keep trying to mend a cracked vessel, while I stand right beside you, patiently waiting for you to see that some things were never meant to be held on to, but to be released, so that there is room in your arms to receive the peace I long to give you. Do not think that I abandoned you in those moments when the pain was so intense you could barely breathe. In every fracture of your heart I have been whispering, my child, this is not where I want you to stop. Every time you were wounded was not proof that you are unworthy, but a warning bell ringing out that you have placed your trust in the wrong place. For far too long, I allow the truth to come to light, not to crush you, but to remove the mask you insisted on placing over that person's face. I want you to see clearly that this relationship is no longer a refuge, but has become a prison. And you must step out if you truly want to live, because I did not create you to be a shadow running after someone, but to be a child of the light, knowing to whom you belong and what you are worthy of. The starting point of every true liberation is not a miracle, but an honest look at the truth. You must dare to admit that the person you are clinging to no longer deserves the place you have given them in your heart. Reality is sometimes harsher than everything you want to believe, but only when you stop lulling yourself to sleep with empty hopes can you begin the journey out of the darkness. Those uneasy intuitions in your heart, the times you feel a lump in your throat without knowing why, the nights when your soul feels cramped and suffocated, even while you are beside that person, these are not signs that you are just too sensitive, but warnings I have planted inside you. The more you try to plug your ears and ignore them, the deeper you walk into the land of deceit. Not everyone is worthy to set foot in the innermost sanctuary of your soul, and certainly no one has the right to turn you into a prisoner of empty promises. You need to stop, step back, and look steadily at the true face of that person and of this relationship, not so that you can hate, but so that you can understand it is time to withdraw your trust from a human heart and place it back into the hands of the one who has never betrayed you. You know, what exhausts you is not only that person, but also the beautiful story you keep retelling yourself so you will not have to face the truth. You say to yourself, "They care about me too. They are just tired. They will change someday." While deep down, you already sense everything is slipping from your grasp. I do not come to rip away that veil violently, but I gently invite you to take it down, even just for a moment, so you can see everything as it truly is. The truth can feel cold at times, but it is never your enemy. It is self-deception that holds you captive for the long haul. I have said before, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Gen 8:32. You are not set free by self-soothing phrases, but in the moment you dare to call by its real name, the very thing that is wounding you. When you are brave enough to admit that this relationship is no longer a place where you are loved in a healthy way, that is the moment grace begins to seep in. There are days when you say to me, "I don't understand why I feel this tired, this sad." But if you would only grow still, you would see that I have already sounded the alarm in your heart many times. That heaviness you feel after each conversation, the evenings you cry in silence while still trying to defend that person, those strange intuitions when you start noticing how their words no longer match their actions. None of this is being paranoid. It is my voice whispering a warning. I have given you intuition and sensitivity not so you can torture yourself, but so you can recognize what is wrong, what is stealing away the peace I have planted within you. As the Spirit keeps quietly reminding your heart, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Prov 4:23. If this relationship keeps slowly draining your smile, choking your breath, and drawing you away from me, then it is no longer a gift, but has become a burden. I do not want you to ignore that small voice any longer, because every time you overlook it, you take one more step into the darkness that I never chose for you. I know there are times you say, "I sense it too, but what if I'm wrong? What if they really care about me? Just weak?" You are afraid of being ungrateful, afraid of being too harsh, afraid of admitting that all this time you have entrusted your heart to the wrong person. That fear of facing your own mistakes makes you cling even more tightly to what is clearly no longer healthy. Your heart is so good that you are always trying to find reasons to excuse others while forgetting yourself. But my child, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Jer 17:9. So do not be quick to place your entire life into the hands of another human being, as fragile and changeable as you are. Let me, the one who sees even what you do not dare to say, examine things with you, so that you no longer have to fight this inner battle alone. I do not come to condemn you for trusting. I come to set you free from endlessly trusting in the wrong place. Try, just once, to sit down and set all the beautiful memories aside and look only at the concrete events that have actually happened. Not to dig up and accuse, but to stop painting bright colors over things that have been gray for a long time. How many times has that person been late, broken promises, spoken words that wounded you without ever truly changing? How many times have you felt like someone begging for scraps of affection, while I have called you my beloved long before you even came into this world? When you bravely write down the facts instead of only clinging to your feelings, you will see that this relationship has stayed standing because you have been straining to hold it up, not because both of you have been building it together. Nothing in all creation is hidden from my sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before me. Confer. Heb 4:13. And I invite you to look again together with me, not to shame you, but so you no longer have to live inside an illusion. The truth will not destroy you. It will only shatter the false reasons that have tied you to a place where you no longer belong. When you begin to accept reality, the pain will surge up even more fiercely, and that is exactly what you have always wanted to avoid. You are afraid that if you admit, "They no longer love me as before," your heart will shatter into pieces that can never be gathered again. So you choose to keep on dreaming a few more nights, hoping a few more weeks, telling yourself, "Let's wait a little longer and see," as if stretching out a severed thread could somehow make it hurt less. But my child, a wound will never heal if it is constantly covered with a dirty bandage and patched over with half-hearted apologies. The sadness you are trying to bury today will only spill over more violently tomorrow. I stand with you at this crossroads and gently say, it is better for you to weep once in the truth than to keep smiling through a life built on lies. Your tears are not meaningless. They are the price paid for the door of freedom to swing open. I do not desire you to become hard-hearted or to distrust everyone. Because of this fall, I only long for you to learn how to place your trust in the right place. To do that, you must begin by stopping the worship of the image you yourself painted of that person, and recognize that I alone am the one who does not change. Do not rely on the powerful, on mere mortals who cannot truly save. Confer. Ps. 146-3. This word is not given so that you may despise humanity, but so that you do not hand over to them a role that only I can bear, to be the absolute support of your soul. When you stop demanding that others be your everything, you will no longer have to despair every time their weakness and limitations show through. I still want you to love, I still want you to trust, but to love in freedom and to trust with clarity, not to love to the point of losing yourself, nor to believe to the point of denying even the call that comes from me. And it is precisely here, when you dare to choose the truth even though it draws blood from your heart, that you will gradually understand. This pain does not come to bury you, but to open a way for a new life that I am quietly preparing for you. Have you noticed that it is only after those moments when you break down in tears that you finally stop defending what has been draining you for so long? When every layer of self-justification falls away, what remains is the searing sting of a wound that has not been properly cared for. I do not despise your pain. I honor it. I watch every tear that falls from your eyes as one watches raindrops soak into parched soil. The Lord is close to the broken-hearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. Ps. 34-19. You are not weeping alone, at the very moment you think you are most abandoned. I am closest to you. Pain, if you allow me to touch it, will no longer be a sentence pronounced over you, but a bell that awakens you, marking the moment you cease living in a state of sleep. I understand that at the beginning you only wanted everything to remain peaceful, without noise, without drama, so you chose silent resignation and accepted all the loss alone. You thought that to endure was to love, that to swallow everything was sacrifice, so you kept forcing down your disappointments all the times you were taken lightly in exchange for a few brief moments of warmth. But my child, I have never taught you to love in a way that turns you into dust beneath someone else's feet. My cross is an offering made out of love, not the story of a person whose dignity is crushed just to keep someone from leaving. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God. Confer. Rom 8:28. Even this shattering, if you let it become a beginning instead of an end. I have allowed your heart to hit rock bottom, not to drown you there, but so that from that place you will never again want to return to what once pushed you down so deep. Every time your heart tightens, I hear you silently ask, why me? What did I do wrong? That question is real, and I do not brush it aside, but I want you to take one more step. Instead of only asking why, begin to ask for what. Pain does not simply appear out of nowhere just to make you suffer. It uncovers the places where you have placed your trust wrongly, the limits you ignored, the moments you kept silent when you should have spoken up. In my light, suffering becomes a mirror in which you can look back at yourself. how you need to learn to guard your heart, where you need to stop, how you must recognize your own worth. I still whisper to you, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Cor 12-9. You are weak, but when you allow me to enter, that very weakness becomes the doorway through which a new strength is formed. There will come a day when you realize you are no longer crying over that person, but weeping out of compassion for yourself and all that you have endured. That is when the change begins. You stop asking, how can I get them back? And start quietly praying, Lord, how can I come back to myself? That hidden shift of direction is the sign of a rebirth. You will grieve, but your grief will turn into joy. Confer JN 16:20. I do not promise that the wound will disappear overnight, but I do promise that it will no longer be a knife, and will instead become a scar, reminding you that you went to the very edge and are still alive, and not only alive, but stronger than before. When you let me guide you, your tears are no longer proof of weakness, but the sign that you are slowly walking out of the old room of sorrow. You will see yourself change from within, not by slogans or grand declarations, but through very small choices in your daily life. You begin to say no to meetings you know will only leave your heart more tangled. You no longer reread every old message as if clinging to a trace of warmth, but simply sigh softly, close the pages of the past, and say, that's enough. You no longer hastily shift all the blame onto others, but you also stop placing everything on yourself. In that fragile middle ground, you learn the wisdom I want to give you, mercy toward the other person, and at the same time, respect toward yourself. And as you take each small step out of the old land of tears, you will feel something very strange. The pain no longer drags you backward, but begins to push you forward. I am not asking you to erase everything as though it had never happened. I am simply inviting you to stop letting that memory sit at the steering wheel of your life. All that you have endured, the sleepless nights, the times you were left hanging halfway, I will gather it all and knead it into a new kind of strength. You will learn to recognize who comes to you with genuine sincerity and who comes only to fill their own emptiness. You once dreamed of a love that would die and rise again many times with the same person, but I want to teach you another kind of rising again within your own inner self. Behold, I make all things new. Rev 21-5. I do not only renew circumstances, I renew the way you see yourself and all that has passed. From seeing yourself only as a victim, you will slowly come to see that you are one who has been rescued, lifted up, and lovingly shaped through every breaking. And then, in this new peace, there will come a moment when you realize that it was precisely your old pain that drew you away from a place where you did not belong, to prepare you for a gentler path. You will no longer reproach me for letting it happen, but begin to thank me for not allowing it to go on any longer than it did. When this truth sinks in, your heart naturally becomes more cautious toward what once wounded you, yet at the same time more tender toward others, because you know that everyone carries tears in their soul. From that moment on, you will no longer want to go back and cling to what only hurts you, because you have tasted the flavor of another kind of peace, the peace that the world cannot give and cannot take away. And it is precisely this new peace that will lead you on, not by the instinct to run back to what is familiar, but by a deeper light inviting you to move forward. When you begin to taste this new peace, you will notice another, quieter battle rising within you, no longer a battle with pain itself, but with the temptation to return to the old place. You think that only joy can entice you, but in truth even a familiar wound knows how to call you back. The very things that used to hurt you still carry a strange scent, the smell of memory, of habit, of that feeling that, at least I know what to expect there. You are afraid to step into a new land you do not yet understand. So your mind starts repainting the brighter parts of the past, while trying to forget the dark streaks. But my child, what is familiar is sometimes nothing more than an old blanket thrown over a damp, moldy room. It feels warm, but in reality, it makes you breathe in what exhausts your soul. I do not want you to go back just because you are afraid to walk forward alone. I know those nights when you lie there asking yourself, what if I was too harsh? What if I gave one more chance, things would be different? The past has a very sweet way of whispering. It does not remind you of the times you were abandoned, but of that one afternoon holding hands, that embrace, that apology that once made you melt. It paints again the beautiful moments, then cleverly blurs out the long days of silence, of deception, of broken promises. You stand again on the threshold, your hand on the same old doorknob, telling yourself, maybe this time they've changed. But I want you to remember, a door that once led you into darkness, if it has not been rebuilt on the foundation of truth, is still an entrance into darkness. As a dog returns to its partition, vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Prov. 26-11. I do not speak this word to insult you, but to awaken you to the fact that not every place you are used to is a place you are meant to stay. Sometimes you think, I just want to talk a little, see how they're doing. It's not like I intend to get back together. I hear that reasoning of yours, and I know that at times you are simply missing someone, a voice, a silhouette, a familiar habit. There is nothing wrong with remembering, but if you let your longing lead the way, it can very easily bring you back to the same old chair where you once sat waiting for promises that were never fulfilled. Familiarity can give you a feeling of safety, but often it is only a false safety, like choosing to live in a house you know is leaking, just because at least you know where the water will drip. I want you to be brave enough to step out of that kind of safety, because behind it lies the fear of change, the fear of loneliness, the fear of starting again. You did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. Confer. Rom 8:15. I have given you another spirit, the spirit of freedom, so that you may dare to choose what is better, even if it means walking along a path that feels strange and unfamiliar. Ask yourself honestly, do you miss that person, or do you miss the version of yourself you once had when you were with them? Do you miss them, or do you miss the feeling of not having to face the emptiness inside your own heart? Many times, you do not truly want to go back to that very person. You only want to return to a season in which you felt less pain than you do now. But my child, going back to the place that once tore you apart just because you are afraid of being lonely today is no different from drinking again from a glass of water you already know is contaminated, simply because you are thirsty. The healing I intend for you does not lie in rewinding the old story with the same script. It lies in your courage to admit that it is time to place a clear full stop so that a new sentence can begin. The former things I no longer remember. Confer. Is 43-18. I invite you to learn with me the grace of letting go so that you are no longer tied to chapters that have already been completed. Remember this. Every time you are about to go back merely because you are afraid to move forward, stop and ask me, Lord, what do you want me to do in this moment? I will never answer you by pressuring you to return to the place that once made you weep. I only encourage you not to let the fear of loneliness steer your life. To be alone for a time with me is far safer than to stay for a long time with someone who does not cherish you. I am always with you. Do not be afraid. That is not only a tender word, but a pledge, so that you dare to take the next step. Only when you accept going forward, even while your heart is still trembling, do you truly touch the salvation I have prepared for you. Healthier relationships, more peaceful days, and a steadier heart that clearly knows to whom it belongs. And from that quiet step onward, you will slowly understand that going back to the place where you were once wounded is never the road home, but only another roundabout walk in the desert from which I am trying to lead you out. As you slowly step out of those old circles, another fear slips in. You are afraid your heart will grow numb, afraid that one day you will no longer dare to love anyone at all. I see you telling yourself, "From now on I will trust no one, I will open my heart to no one, that way it will hurt less." It sounds safe, but in reality it is only a heavy suit of armor that gradually pulls you away from the gentle nature I have placed within you. I did not create you to become an unfeeling stone, but to have a heart that knows how to be moved, and that also learns wisdom through its wounds. I will remove from you the heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Confer. Es 36-26. I have promised this, and so I do not want you to go back to the place where you yourself turn your heart to stone, merely because you are afraid of enduring one more blow. What I desire in you is not a goodness that turns you into an easy target to be exploited, but neither is it a vigilance so extreme that anyone who comes near you gets pushed away. Gentleness and forgiveness do not mean letting others do whatever they want to you. When Jesus taught, "Love your enemies," confer. Mount 544, he did not tell you to let others go on trampling you. He taught you not to let hatred seize your heart. You can forgive, you can pray for them, and still draw a clear boundary. This is as far as it goes. I do not allow anyone to step further into the ground where I am wounded. When you learn to set limits, you do not become bitter. On the contrary, you are honoring my own handiwork in you, because you understand that you are not something to be used and then thrown away. A truly protected heart is not one that builds walls, but one that knows how to close itself to whatever draws it away from me, and to open itself to whatever brings it closer to the light. You do not need to laugh with everyone, trust everyone, share your heart with everyone. That is not love, that is wasting your inner treasure. Even Jesus did not entrust his most intimate moments to the crowds. He had his close companions beside him. Confer Mark 9-2. I also invite you to choose carefully those who are allowed to step more deeply into your inner world. Those who come to you only when they need to fill a void, those who take your presence as something obvious, those who make you constantly question your own worth. Such people should not occupy the center of your heart. A mature heart is a heart that still knows how to love and to give, but no longer bows its head to being taken advantage of even one more time. Forgiveness, in my way, is not erasing your memory or calling black white, but gradually loosening the rope that binds you to the past. As long as you are still tormented, still repeating what they have done, still waiting for a perfect apology before you let go, they are still holding the key to your soul. Even though they have already walked out of your life, forgive one another as God has forgiven you in Christ. Confer. F. 432. I forgive not because the other is deserving, but because you are worthy of freedom. Forgiveness is when you decide, I will not allow their actions to define me for even one more second. You do not deny the pain, but you refuse to live forever in the role of the victim. From there, you begin to stand up, wipe away your tears, and let the past stand in its proper place, behind you, not before your eyes. Then, little by little, you will realize that precisely when your heart is guarded and healed, you become more tender, not colder. You know that you are not perfect, and so you do not demand that others be without flaw. Yet you are clear-sighted enough to distinguish between someone who is weak but sincere and someone who is clever but calculating. You are no longer quick to condemn anyone, but you are also no longer quick to excuse what is clearly wearing you down. In that fragile balance, you will experience something deep. You have truly grown up, not because you have become hard, but because you have learned to lean on me instead of clinging to human beings. At that moment, your heart, though it bears a few scars, becomes softer before me and is ready to learn to place its refuge no longer in changing affections, but in the source of peace that no one can ever snatch from your hands. Do you realize that almost your whole life has revolved around one very small, yet very heavy question? What do people think of me? Just one word of praise, and your soul soars. Just one cold look, and you sink to the bottom for the rest of the day. You let your moods rise and fall with other people's states of mind, like a little boat left to the mercy of every wave. When they stay, you believe you have value. When they turn their backs, you quickly conclude, I must not be worth loving. But my child, that is the most dangerous trap of all. Handing the key to your peace into the hands of people who are just as fragile and changeable as you. I have already told you, cursed is the one who trusts in mortals. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord. Confer. Jer 17:5-7. Yet you keep swapping them, making human words the center and pushing my voice out to the edges. The reason you are worn out is not only that they have hurt you, but that you have allowed them to become the only mirror by which you see yourself. If they praise you, only then do you dare to believe you are good. If they criticize you, you quickly start doubting even the things I myself have sown within you. You have handed other people the power to define your worth with just a few passing words, while I have spent an entire lifetime engraving your name upon my heart. Confer is 49-15-16. Afraid of being abandoned, you cling to relationships even when you know you are being taken for granted. Afraid of being mocked, you push down your true self just to remain pleasing in their eyes. Little by little, you can no longer hear my voice, because your ears are filled to the brim with applause and with reproach. You do not realize that every time you build your identity on something that can change, you are signing your own sentence to a lifetime of restlessness. I do not blame you for your longing to be loved, to be seen, to be acknowledged. I am the one who placed that very desire in your heart. But I want you to return to the right order before you ask, what do people think of me? Ask instead, what do I think of you? True peace is not when everyone likes you, but when you know to whom you belong, even when others misunderstand you, reject you, or forget you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Confer. John 14:27. I spoke these words because I knew there would be days when no one understands you, no one stands by your side, and only the peace that comes from me can keep your heart from shattering. When you choose to remain with me, to quietly listen to my word instead of chasing every conflicting opinion, little by little the axis around which your life turns will be changed. You will no longer revolve around the gaze of others, but around my gaze, a gaze that has never left you, not even on the days when you were sure you had been forgotten. I want to teach you how to live in the midst of the world without being enslaved by it. You can still work, love, connect, and build beautiful relationships, yet without allowing anyone to take my place in your heart. When someone steps out of your life for a time, you are free to feel sad, but you no longer collapse as if the world had ended, because deep down you know, in God alone my soul finds rest. Confer, Ps 62-6. You will begin to notice that you are more free, free to say no to demands that drain you dry, free to walk away from relationships that pull you away from me, free to choose what is right even when it means going against the crowd. When your sense of worth is anchored in me, praise becomes a gift instead of an addictive drug. Criticism becomes an opportunity to examine yourself rather than a verdict that condemns you. The peace within you will not come from controlling others, but from letting me be Lord in every small choice you make. Then one day you will look back and suddenly understand it was precisely your falls that pushed you more tightly into my arms. The relationships that once made you weep will become mirrors in which you recognize how much you have changed. You no longer cling at all costs. You no longer sell your dignity cheaply just to keep someone by your side. I will use what once left you in ruins to help you enter more deeply into the pain of others, so that you may know how to console, to support, to call them back to me, just as you yourself were called. God is the one who comforts us in all our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any distress. Confer 2 Cor 1-4. When you let me be your only source of peace, your old wounds will no longer be full stops but commas, opening into new stories in which you become a guide for other hearts still groping in the dark, just as you once did. And through all those journeys, you will whisper to me, "Thank you that there was a time when I put my trust in the wrong place, so that today I know where to place it rightly, in the heart of the Lord." You will still go through bends in the road where old memories come back and knock very softly, not loudly but persistently. There will be days when your heart sinks, when a scent, a song, the familiar stretch of road suddenly pulls an entire season of your life back into the present and makes you wonder, maybe it wasn't really that bad. Maybe if I go back, if I try one more time, things will be different. Those thoughts may sound gentle, like an invitation to return to an old warm place, but I want you to recognize their true nature. They are not the call of peace, but the echo of fear that does not dare to move forward. The past may indeed contain beautiful moments, I do not deny that, but it is not the ground on which you are meant to rebuild your future. It is only the raw material I will use to heal and transform you. What has happened you cannot rewrite, but I can take precisely those unchangeable things and use them to save you, as long as you are willing to look ahead instead of constantly turning your head back. Every time you choose to let go of a conversation that keeps replaying in your mind instead of feeding it further, you are loosening another link in the chain that holds you back. Every time you sigh and say in silence, "That's enough, I hand this over to the Lord," another piece of the fetters around you cracks without your even noticing. I understand very well the emptiness you are carrying. On quiet evenings when the house is still, when your phone no longer buzzes with the messages you once received, you lie there listening to the ticking of the clock louder than any other sound, and you tell yourself, maybe enduring being looked down on is still better than lying here alone. You think loneliness is a bottomless pit, and that only when someone is beside you, even if they are indifferent, cold, even hurtful, at least you do not have to face the emptiness within yourself. But my child, in my eyes, the loneliness you are passing through is only a low stretch of road between two hills, whereas staying in a toxic relationship is truly the prison that locks up your soul. You can walk all the way through a valley, because every valley eventually ends, but a prison only adds more bolts on the door, tighter day by day, if you do not decide to step out. I do not promise that every night will be easy to sleep through, but I promise that the faithful steps you take on the path I lead you along will not be meaningless. And at some moment you will be astonished to realize you have left that steep, dark slope behind without even knowing when. There will come a morning with no special sign at all. You will still get up, comb your hair, pour yourself a glass of water as on any other day. But right in that utterly ordinary moment you will suddenly realize that your heart is no longer as heavy as before. The old person's name flashes through your mind without stabbing. An old song plays and you no longer choke up. You will not jump up and shout for joy like in the movies, but you will sense a very strange lightness. The pain of former days seems to have been worn down by time and grace. The fear of being abandoned no longer jerks you awake in the night, and a quiet joy, not noisy, not showy, is gently returning. You may not be able to name it at once, but it is exactly the gift I have been quietly preparing for you since the days when you thought you would never climb out of that swamp of emotions. It is the fruit of every time you chose to take my hand instead of clinging to a human arm. It is the result of those nights when you wept and still whispered, "Lord, I do not understand, but I believe you are still here. I am not a distant being, sitting on high, weighing whether you deserve to be lifted up or not. I am closer than your own breath, present in every heartbeat, in each little decision no one else notices. Every time you try to smile while your eyes are still wet, every time you choose gentle words instead of retaliation, every time you forgive in silence, though no one has apologized. All of these are traces of my action within you. You think it is. Just my temperament is mild. I don't know how to stay angry for long, but it is really I who have planted in your heart a capacity to love beyond anything you could imagine on your own. You have doubted yourself. You have thought you were too weak, too foolish, too easily trusting. Yet I look at you with completely different eyes. I see in you a resilient life force that even betrayal cannot extinguish. In all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. Those words are not for some distant someone, but for you, the one reading these lines with a heart that is still not fully healed. You have so often blamed yourself for allowing others to hurt you for so long, but I see something else. Through those tears in your heart, my light can penetrate more easily. There is an inner strength I placed in you before you were even born, a kind of quiet perseverance that no storm can swallow up. Do not think that because you once cried silently in your room, you are weak. Sometimes it is precisely those who dare to face their pain, who dare to admit their vulnerability before me, who carry the most enduring strength. I have never doubted you, even when you doubt yourself, because I know that the seed I sow does not disappear. It is only waiting for the day to sprout. When you let me be the Lord of your journey, the very trials you thought would break you will become the place where you learn what it means to stand upright in the wind, where you discover that relying on me is not an escape from reality, but the only way to pass through reality without being devoured by it. In the time ahead, there will be turnings that seem very small, but in fact decide an entirely new season of your life. It may be the moment you receive a message from someone from your past, an invitation to go back, a promise that this time will be different, accompanied by pledges to change, to try harder, to make it up to you. It may also be another opportunity that appears, a new relationship, a new way of life, a new job that brings you a temporary sense of reassurance, like a quick bandage covering a wound that is still deep. One path will look like a shortcut. If you only temporarily forget what you have learned with me, close your eyes, accept a few blurred, ambiguous things, you will immediately feel less lonely, less empty, less forced to face yourself. The other path is different. It does not give you an instant feeling of being filled. In fact, at first it may make you feel that the more you walk it, the more stripped bare you become. Because it is the path of truth, of clear boundaries, of choosing to live with me even when there is no one beside you to fill the empty space. I know you, and I know you will be tempted to choose the road that seems easier to breathe on. Who does not long for a shoulder to lean on, an embrace that makes them feel chosen? Who does not want to be comforted right away instead of walking in faith through silent nights? But my child, not every path that soothes your fear the fastest is the path that leads to lasting peace. The peace of this world often promises you immediate comfort, as long as you agree to trade away a piece of truth, a portion of your dignity, and little by little, even your soul. My peace may begin with days in which you must learn to get used to the quiet, to practice trusting even when you do not yet see. But it is precisely through those footsteps that seem as if nothing is happening that I build within you a rock-solid foundation that no storm can uproot. I have said before, the wide gate and the broad road lead to destruction, but the narrow gate and the hard road lead to life. Remember that word when you stand before choices that at first glance look far too easy. I do not stand far off, watching you and waiting to see whether you choose right or wrong in order to score you. I walk with you, right in the moment when you are torn between two ways. When you see a road that feels familiar, promising a quick sense of being filled, yet repeating the same old patterns, lack of honesty, lack of respect, lack of God, be honest with me and say, I really want to choose this path, but I know it does not come from you. Please help me have enough courage to say no. And when you look toward the other way, the way on which you must accept a slower pace of life, learn to rebuild your life on new foundations. Learn to connect with healthier people. Learn to let me be the one who comforts you, instead of demanding that someone else make it up to you. Then also say, I am afraid, but I trust. I do not ask you to walk without trembling. I only ask that you do not turn your back and run from the path into which I am inviting you. Because there, even though there will be empty days, I am present more deeply than ever. At the end of the road, built on trust in me, is not a life that is numb and drained of human warmth, but a heart that has grown mature, able to love without being enslaved, able to be attached without losing itself. When you choose to let me be the one who holds your hand and leads you, I will send into your life people who know how to cherish, to listen, to support, not perfect, but reflecting in some measure my gentleness and faithfulness. You will learn how to be present in relationships without being swept away by other people's emotional storms. You will be grateful when you receive love, but you will not collapse if someone turns in another direction. Your worth then will no longer be placed on someone's scale, but anchored firmly in my heart. And when you look back on the stretch of road you walked alone, the nights you cried until no tears were left, the mornings you woke to find your heart empty, you will no longer ask, why did God let me go through that? But will whisper, if it had not been for those days, I would never know how. Free and at peace I am now. And in that very moment you will deeply understand something that until now you have only heard as a familiar line of prayer. Only, I am a refuge that cannot be shaken. Human affection, however beautiful, still bears the marks of limitation and change. Only my love is never withdrawn. Everything you build on someone's praise, attention, or fickle feelings can collapse after a single event. But what you build on the rock, which is my word, will stand firm even when the ground beneath your feet trembles. Therefore, if tomorrow your heart is shaken again by a look, a sentence, a door closing in your face, remember to turn inward to where I am waiting, and hear again this sentence, you are my beloved child. In you I delight. When you believe this not only with your mind but with your lived experience, you will no longer run around in panic seeking shelter in other people's hearts, because you will know that you already have a home that will never collapse. It is my own heart, always open, always waiting, always holding you close, even after all the times you have placed your trust in the wrong hands. You will gradually come to see that the place where someone's footsteps stop is not the end point of your life. There are people who are only allowed to walk with you for a stretch, then quietly turn in another direction, and you feel as if you have been abandoned at a crossroads. Yet, in the very moment you feel most exposed, I am quietly preparing new encounters, new faces, hearts that do not come to take from you but to lift you up. When a familiar door closes in front of you, I do not stand there mocking you or scolding you for being mistaken. I walk with you down that dark hallway, pointing toward another way you have never noticed before. You thought loss was a full stop, but in my eyes it is only a comma, so that your story can move into a new chapter. The doors I will open for you later are not copies meant to replace the old, but are things that have always been in my loving plan for you. It is just that before, you were too busy clinging to what did not belong to you to receive them. One day, when you look back, you will understand that some people left your life not because you were not good enough, but because if they had stayed, your heart would have been pulled even farther away from me. There are things I must prune away, not because I enjoy seeing you hurt, but because I want to give you other fruits, which you would never touch if you kept gripping what you have now. Yet I also know very clearly what is silently growing in your heart after the wounds. It is the bitter taste of disappointment, of resentment, of all the why questions that have no answer. If you let those feelings grow freely without bringing them to me, they will become like a hidden poisonous stream, slowly seeping into the roots of your soul, wilting the beautiful things in you that I, myself, have planted. Anger can flare up strongly and make you feel as though you are being protected, shielded, but if you hold on to it for too long, it will cloud your vision so that you no longer recognize the gentle things still present in your life. A little initial bitterness is natural. I do not require you to smile right after being hurt, nor do I want you to pretend that nothing has happened. I fear only one thing, that you allow yourself to live forever in that state, letting anger slowly become part of your identity. I did not create you to wear a face twisted by resentment, but a face that has cried and yet knows how to soften again, knows how to touch pain without letting it devour the gentle nature I have sown in you. If you keep holding the image of others as the source of all your bitterness, you will unwittingly let them go on controlling your emotions, even long after they have left your life. Forgiveness, in the way I invite you to, is not easy, and I know that. Forgiving is not erasing memory, not calling injustice no big deal, and even less is it forcing yourself to go back to the place that made you bleed. Forgiveness is a journey in which you slowly pull out the thorns lodged in your heart, one by one, under my tender gaze. You do not have to sit in front of them, hold their hands, and speak noble words if you are not ready. Sometimes, forgiveness begins very quietly, with a whisper in a closed room. Lord, I do not want to hate anymore, even though I still hurt. Please help me to let go, little by little. I hear that prayer, and at the very moment you say it, you begin to reclaim, bit by bit, ownership over your own heart. For when you decide not to let resentment replay in your mind over and over, you are gradually cutting the cord that ties you to them. From the place where, every time you remember, your heart tightens with pain, in time you will feel only a slight sting of a scar, reminding you of what you have gone through, but no longer holding power over your present day. You often think of forgiveness as a gift for the one who has done wrong, as if when you let it go, they somehow escape, their guilt becomes lighter. But in my eyes, the first gift of forgiveness actually belongs to you. Every time you release a thought of revenge, every time you refuse to let your mind replay old scenes and hurt yourself again, you are unlocking a small inner door. You will find yourself breathing more easily, sleeping more peacefully, smiling more sincerely. The other person may never come back to say sorry. They may go on with their life as if they have done nothing wrong, but that does not decide whether you will be healed or not. Forgiveness is when you declare, I will not wait for their remorse in order to be free. I choose freedom today, by God's grace. It does not mean you deny the pain. It means you refuse to let that wound keep bleeding forever. You still remember what happened, but you no longer bind yourself to carry the heavy stone of resentment on your shoulders every day. I know there will be days when everything you have gone through feels unbearably unfair, and you would rather let anger be the armor that protects you from being hurt again. But my child, armor made of bitterness does not only keep others away, it also blocks the flow of grace and the good people I want to bring into your life. If you make the walls around you too thick, even I can only stand outside and patiently wait for you to open a small crack for me to step in. I am not asking you to become too good in the sense of letting anyone freely come and go in your heart. I am teaching you to be brave enough to set boundaries while keeping your heart from being poisoned by hatred. You may not allow that person to return to their old place in your life, but you also do not need to give them a permanent seat in the complaints you repeat every night. You can firmly say, enough to harmful behavior, and at the same time quietly pray that they may be transformed, then hand them over entirely to me to take care of while you move forward. When you decide to forgive, you do not become weak. On the contrary, you are revealing a strength the world rarely understands. It is easy to keep in your heart a list of other people's faults, easy to build a whole story in which you are always the victim and the other person is forever the offender. It is much harder to dare to look deeply into yourself, to recognize your own limits, your silent complicity, the times you accepted less than what you truly deserve, and then to decide, I do not want this past to become the identity of my life anymore. True strength does not lie in how much you can hurt others back, but in your power to choose not to retaliate. It is precisely in those seemingly small choices of not doing that I am deepening your foundations, so that one day, when you stand before the one who once made you weep, you will be able to look at them with different eyes, not the naive gaze of the old days, nor the fierce stare that wants to tear them apart, but the eyes of someone who has gone further, who has learned something precious through their very wounds. You do not realize it, but every time you let me lead you through the process of forgiveness, I am restoring in you the image of my only Son, the one who stretched out his arms on the cross and spoke words of forgiveness, even while being mocked and abandoned. This does not mean you must accept everything exactly as he did. It means you are invited to share a little of that spirit within your own personal story. He did not allow human cruelty to become the final chapter. He turned it into the path that opened to new life. If you walk with me, you too can do something similar, not allowing the betrayal, lies, or coldness of others to end your story, but letting them become the launching pad for a life that is deeper, more mature, and more filled with compassion. Then, when you tell the old story again, you will no longer tremble with rage, but will speak with the calm tone of someone who has been healed by a wise physician and who is now ready to show others the way to that same clinic. I am not in a hurry to push you to forgive in a single moment. I know there are wounds that need much time, many conversations, many sleepless nights, many hours of prayer. I will not leave you alone in any stage of that journey. When you feel that you do not want to forgive, tell me, do not hide it. Lord, honestly, I do not want to let this go. I feel it is too unfair, but I also do not want my heart to be imprisoned by this forever. Please help me take one small step at a time. I will receive that honesty as a precious gem. I will gently lead you on through small signs during your day, through the presence of kind people whom I place beside you, through an unexpected lightness in a time of prayer that seemed dry and empty. Little by little, you will find that you are no longer as tightly bound as before, even if nothing outside has changed. That is the sign that the chains are falling off, even if the sound is very soft. At a certain moment, you will realize you have already come a long way from where you began. Instead of circling around the old story every day, you start giving your heart to other things, learning, working, serving, building new and healthier relationships, tending again to the spiritual life you once neglected. The new people who enter your life are not perfect, but they do not come to exploit your vulnerability. They come to grow with you. Gradually, you will learn how to open your heart again without recklessness as before, to trust without being blind, to love without despising yourself. And in all these quiet changes, you will hear my gentle reminder. Do you see? When you decided not to let hatred rule you, you gave yourself back the right to keep writing your story. The past has not vanished, but it is no longer a prison. It has become a classroom, and from that classroom, I am leading you out, so you can step into a new space where the light is no longer hidden by anyone's shadow, but comes straight from me, the one who has always believed that you can rise, move on, and live more fully each day. Then, a new season of your life will begin, more measured, more quiet, yet far deeper and more stable, than the noisy days that have passed. I will not rebuild you in the middle of applause or loud celebrations, but in very ordinary mornings, when you pour a glass of water, draw back the curtain, hear the birds outside your window, and suddenly realize that your heart is no longer frantic as before. It is in that stillness that I am arranging the fragments within you. You will begin to learn how to be alone without feeling abandoned, how to sit with yourself without turning the music up loud, without chasing after constant conversation to fill the silence, simply listening to your own breath and knowing that I am present. Small joys, a good page of a book, a windy afternoon, a simple meal filled with peace will gradually replace the storms of emotion that once tossed you about. You will discover that the smile on your lips no longer waits for anyone's permission, no longer depends on a scene, or no reply yet on a screen. Joy is no longer something you beg for. It becomes a stream quietly flowing from within, because you know you are loved, even when no one seems to be paying attention to you. My words, "Be still and know that I am God," will no longer be distant lines of scripture, but a lived experience. A resting place for those days that seem to hold nothing special, yet are in fact the new foundations of your soul. In that stillness, your true voice, the one that has been drowned out by the noise of others for so long, will return. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of self-reproach, not those forced phrases of awkward self-consolation, but the clear voice of a soul gradually being healed. You will begin to write again what you once buried. You will tell your story in a different light, no longer as a shameful chain of failures, but as the journey of someone who has been rescued from a dark place. You may keep a journal, you may paint, play music, write poetry, serve, smile at those who suffer more than you. Whichever form you choose, it will carry a new fragrance. The fragrance of one who has gone through the fire and no longer burns with resentment. The treasure within you, those things I have quietly placed there long ago, will be opened one by one. You will be surprised to discover gifts you once did not dare believe you had. The ability to listen without judging, to speak words of comfort without embellishing, to stand beside others in their pain without running away. I put a new song in your mouth. That word will be fulfilled, not necessarily as a melody, but as a new way of living, a new rhythm for each day of your life. Those around you will see this transformation, even though you neither advertise nor display it. Some who once thought you would collapse completely after the recent upheaval, who expected you to remain trapped in gloom, will instead see you standing more firmly than before, calmer, more measured, with eyes that hold greater depth. They will not be able to understand why, for they can only see what is on the surface, while I have been shaping you within, little by little. There will be some who are curious, some who quietly admire you, and others who feel unsettled. For when you no longer live dependent on their gaze, when you are no longer easily controlled, those who once grew accustomed to manipulating your emotions will feel they have lost their place. A few old faces may reappear, with polite inquiries, with words of longing, with belated apologies, or with an offer to start again from the beginning that sounds very sincere. They may say they have thought a great deal, have changed, have come to recognize your worth now that you are no longer there. You will listen, you will not slam the door, for the kindness in you remains intact, yet deep inside you will know you cannot go back to that place again. Like someone who has just stepped out of an airless room, you may feel compassion for those who are still inside, but you cannot walk back in and shut the door again just to put their minds at ease. You will experience a different kind of mercy, no longer the kind of pity that turns you into a doormat for others to wipe their feet on, but a compassion that knows where to stop. You may pray for them, bless their journey, be ready to forgive what has passed, yet you will not put yourself back into the old place where you once lost sleep and doubted your own worth. You will learn to say things you did not dare to say before, Thank you for saying that, but my life is going in another direction now. I cherish what we once had, but I cannot return to the kind of attachment we used to have. I forgive, but I am not going back down that old road. These words are not cruel. They are the fruit of wisdom paid for with many nights of tears. Your boundaries will become clearer, not as a cold wall, but as a fence protecting a precious garden. Whoever comes in with respect, patience, and sincerity will be welcomed. Whoever tries to enter through manipulation, demands, or emotions that overwhelm reason will be stopped outside. You will come to see that you have the right to choose who may be close and who should be kept at a distance, and that this right is not selfishness, but part of your cooperation with me in protecting the work I am building within you. And in all of this, you will learn a very difficult yet very beautiful art, to love without erasing yourself. You will still be able to open your heart to new people, still be able to build deep relationships, still be able to give your time, your care, your support, but no longer in the way of placing others on a throne while you sit at their feet. Your love will grow less heavy with fear of loss, less haunted by the obsession that you must hold on at all costs, and more filled with the freedom to give. You love because you are loved by God first, not because you need others to prove that you are worthy. When someone values you, you are grateful. When someone leaves, you hurt but you do not shatter, because the core of who you are no longer lies in their hands. In God we live and move and have our being. When that sentence becomes the true heartbeat of your life, you will walk more lightly, no longer dragging behind you the invisible chains that bind you to the gazes, words, and judgments of others. Then what I have promised you will become clear. The coming season will not be a noisy, dazzling season, but a season of steady maturity, where you walk beside me with a peaceful heart, bright eyes, a heart that is soft without breaking, steadfast without hardening, and you can whisper to me each day, Lord, I thank you for lifting me out of the places that once wounded me, so that today I can stand here, still able to love, yet no longer losing myself in anyone. Then gradually, as you walk through a few more seasons beyond those days when you thought you would never be able to lift your head again, you will be amazed to realize that your own story does not end with your healing. I do not allow what you have suffered merely so it can close with a light sigh of relief and then be over. The times you were torn apart inside, the nights you sat hugging your pillow, afraid to cry out loud, the prayers that seemed to dissolve into the air, all of these will become the language that one day you will use to speak to those who are standing exactly where you once stood. You will hear in their voice a trembling you know so well. You will see in their eyes the same confusion and panic that once filled yours, people caught between the fear of being hurt yet again and the fear of letting go of what is strangling them. When I lead such people across your path, you will understand that the very stretch of road you most wanted to erase from your memory is the place where I have prepared you to become a support for someone else. There will come a day when someone sits before you, hands clasped, haltingly telling you about a dark relationship, about the times they were belittled, deceived, used, and then discarded, and at the end whispering, I don't know how to get out. I'm afraid I won't survive if I lose that person. They will think they are the only ones so weak, the only foolish ones who cling to something that is already so ruined. In that moment, you will not answer them with cold advice, nor throw at them the phrases, you have to be strong, that sound so right yet are empty. You will look at them with the very gaze you once longed to receive, a gaze that neither despises nor hastily condemns, yet also does not collude with what is imprisoning them. From the deepest place in your heart, you will slowly speak the things which, if no one had once said them to you, might have broken you completely. That there was a time when you too thought you would die if you had to let go. That there was a phase when you believed your life was over. That you once begged to turn back time and fix everything. And then you will go on to tell them that, Even though you thought you could not possibly live through that storm, you are still sitting here, still breathing, still smiling, even more at peace than before, because I took your hand and led you all the way through that stretch of darkness. You will not need to tell your story in a dramatic way or use ornate words. The mere fact that you exist, with a quiet steadiness, with a gaze no longer glued to old wounds, will be a testimony more powerful than any sermon. They will believe you, not because you are skilled in reasoning, but because in the way you listen, in each space of silence you give them, they will sense that you understand their pain from within, not as someone observing from afar. At times you will not need to offer a solution right away. It will be enough to say, I have walked through what you are walking through. I know how dark it is, but I also know what awaits on the other side of that darkness. In that very moment, your story, the things you were once ashamed of and wanted to hide, will become a small, flickering light in the night for someone who is in despair. And as I have spoken through Paul, God comforts us in all our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction. You will see those words come alive in concrete reality, no longer as distant lines on a page. There will be people who ask you, how could you ever forgive? How could you endure that whole journey without becoming hardened? And you will smile, because you know the answer does not lie in your own strength. You will honestly share that there were times you had no desire at all to forgive, days when you begged me to give back to that person exactly what they had sown into your life. Moments when you wished your heart could simply die so that it would not have to feel anymore. Yet precisely in those moments when you were almost letting go, all you could do was groan before me. I cannot forgive. I cannot get through this. Please do for me the part I cannot do. And little by little, not dramatically, not in a whirlwind, I changed the way you saw everything. I did not erase your memory, but I lifted from those old memories the crushing weight they carried, so that they became chapters already closed, no longer dragging you back to relive every scene. You will tell this story so that those who stand before you may understand that it was when you were at your weakest that I was strongest, and that only by me was your pain kept from giving birth to hatred, and was instead opened into compassion for yourself and for the one who wounded you. You will look again at your scars with different eyes. In the past, whenever you thought about your story, all you could feel was shame, self-pity, or accusations against yourself for having been so foolish. But when you allow me to touch those cracks, they cease to be marks of failure and become signs that you truly lived, truly loved, and were truly rescued by me. Like the risen one who still bears the nail marks in his hands, not because he has not been healed, but because those marks are now glory proof that love is stronger than every betrayal and every death, so too will I use your pain. I will not wipe it away as though it had never existed. I will transform it so that whenever you look back, instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You will whisper, if it had not been for those days, I would never have known how steadfast the Lord's heart is toward me. In that moment you will understand that your suffering has not been wasted. I have woven it into a larger tapestry, the story of salvation. I have prepared uniquely for you and for those whom you will meet. Do not panic when you feel that you are late, that you have wasted too many years on someone unworthy, on a hazy romance, on a relationship that just dragged on. I know there are nights when you lie there tormenting yourself. If only I had woken up sooner, if only I had walked away years ago, I would be somewhere completely different now. You look around and see others who seem to be on schedule, with steadier careers, peaceful families, healthy relationships, and you conclude that you have strayed from the original plan for your life. But my child, you are measuring my time with your narrow ruler. I do not calculate your life the way one measures a project that has fallen behind because you made mistakes. With me, there is no such thing as Plan B patched together after Plan A has collapsed. Every bend in the road, even the ones you took out of stubbornness, I am able to weave into my path in order to bring you back to exactly where you need to be. You look at the clock and see yourself as late. I look at your heart and see it being shaped. Those years you call wasted have in fact been the time in which you were shown your weak spots, your gaps, your deep wounds, which, if left hidden, would quietly steer your decisions for the rest of your life. Waiting is not dead time. It is when I am laying foundations within you before opening new doors for you. A builder does not raise a house on ground that has not been firmly compacted. In the same way, I do not lead you into a new season, while inside you everything is still governed by the old ways of thinking, the old ways of loving, the old ways of clinging. If you desire a different kind of life, healthier relationships, a deeper peace, then first you must allow me to adjust those things that once caused you to give your heart to the wrong place. That work takes time, and I am in no hurry. You have asked me for many things that you believed you needed immediately. Someone who would love you rightly, a warm family, a stable job, a future with fewer storms. You imagined that if I loved you, I would make everything happen quickly to make up for what you have suffered. But there are cries from your heart to which I seem silent, not because I do not hear, but because I see that you are not yet ready to receive what you ask for. If I were to bring into your life someone truly good, while your heart has still not learned how to honor boundaries, you might simply replay the old story, putting that person on the throne that belongs to me, painting them as your savior, pouring all your expectations and very life into a human being and then watching it all fall apart again. I love you too much to let that cycle repeat. So the delays you interpret as abandonment are in fact the fences that shield you from things you think are blessings, but for which the time has not yet come. I am never late on any stretch of your journey. Do you remember Lazarus? When people came to tell Jesus that he was gravely ill, he did not rush there at once. He remained where he was for 2 more days, so that by the time he arrived, Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. To human eyes, that was delay, too late, failure. Yet it was precisely when all hope seemed gone that I revealed my glory by calling Lazarus back to life. In the same way, there are closed doors in your life, situations over which you have written, "It's over, there is nothing left to save," and from that very place I sketch a path beyond your imagination. I do not simply reconstruct exactly what you wanted. I make new your whole way of living, of loving, of stepping into the future, and you will discover that what once appeared to be irreparable loss has become the very place where I was preparing a grace you never even dared to dream of. Therefore, do not be quick to conclude that you have wandered off from the destiny I have for you. My plan is not so fragile that a few wrong decisions on your part could cause it to collapse. I am more than able to turn your erratic detours into bends in the road that lead you into deeper trust. The one thing I desire from you is not a flawless past, but a present that knows how to return. Each time you turn back to me, each time you confess, I have placed my trust where it did not belong. Please lead me back to you. Then no matter where you are on the path, you are standing at the exact place from which a new journey can begin. Delay in your eyes does not mean delay in my design. Everything is unfolding at a pace that, when you look back someday, will make you exclaim, "So the Lord was never absent." He was quietly arranging every shattered piece of my life. When you begin to believe this, you will no longer be so anxious to have a beautiful ending right now, to prove to the world that you are not less than anyone else. You will be willing to slow down, not because you are retreating, but because you want to take each step with me. You will gradually discover that your deeper calling is not to live a life others will praise as smooth and successful, but to live in such a way that on every stretch of the road, people who look at you can glimpse something of me. And in that very moment, the story you once wanted so badly to hide will become a beautiful part of your mission. It will remind drifting hearts that they are not alone, that there is a way out of the darkness, that there is one who is never late, never misses an appointment, never grows weary of your returns. I am that one, and I am still writing your story with the ink of mercy and the timing of eternal wisdom, not with the hurried, anxious measurements of human beings. One day, when your heart is no longer so shaken, you will realize what you still cannot fully understand now. The doors that close are not the full stop to your worth, but the times when I quietly stepped in to shield you from something whose dark side you had not yet seen. Then you will look back and suddenly understand why some relationships that seemed so beautiful ended so abruptly, why certain people passed through your life so quickly, even though you tried to hold on, why there were moments when you were forced to leave a place you thought you would be attached to for a very long time. What you called loss on that day, in the light of tomorrow, you will see as protection. I did not abandon you. I only pulled you out of dangerous zones before things went too far. Do you remember? There was a time I stirred your heart about a certain man, not with thunder or strange signs, but only with very small, vague, yet persistent uneasiness. You paused for a moment. You listened for a while, but then you reassured yourself that you were overthinking, that you needed to be more generous, that anyone can change. I do not blame you for your longing to be loved, but I want you to understand this. Each time I sound a signal in your heart, it is not to destroy your happiness, but to save you from a far deeper pain if you keep walking as though nothing is wrong. I clearly see what you do not yet see. I know very well that if you continue to ignore my reminders, your heart will receive another cut so deep that it will be hard for you to believe in goodness again. My child, I am your father, not on paper, but in the concrete reality of every breath you take. My love for you does not change with sunny days or rainy days, is not governed by whether today you pray fervently or coldly, does not depend on whether you succeed or fail. But the world you live in does not move along that same orbit. In this earthly place, it is very rare for anyone to love you without a trace of self-interest, and if you are not sober, that will wound you deeply. I do not say this so that you will suspect everyone, but so that you will stop nurturing the illusion that anyone who speaks sweet words to you, offers you a few gentle gestures, automatically deserves to hold the key to your heart. There are people who draw near to you not because they want to lift you up, but because there is something in you that makes them feel filled. Their ego, their emptiness, their need for control, or even their craving to possess. When those needs are not met the way they want, they are ready to shake the dust from their hands, turn their backs, even trample on the good you have offered, without the slightest thought of how many long nights you will walk through after that. I see those scratches long before they reach you, and that is why I try to awaken you, sending you signs, reminders, words here and there, from this person or that, and even those moments when you happen to read verse of scripture that seems to speak straight into your own story. But what do you usually do with those warnings? You hear, you see, your heart wavers for a moment, and then you fold them up like folding a page of a book, put them in a drawer, and keep walking, driven by the inertia of your feelings. You say to me, I know, I'll think about it more, but then your heart runs far faster than your reason. You choose to believe the other person's promises rather than my reminders, to cling to their eyes rather than to the unease I have placed in your heart. You do not realize that whenever you place a human being in my place, you are asking a very limited heart to become an absolute refuge for your soul, and that is something no one can do. So the inevitable end will be shattering. I love you too much to silently watch you walk toward the cliff, and so I use every way, from gentle to strong, to pull you back. But because I respect your freedom, I do not yank you away by force, I only patiently remind you, while the final step on the path of choosing always belongs to you. You once asked in tears, "If God loves me, why didn't He stop this from the beginning?" You do not know that it is precisely because I love you that I have stopped so many things you never knew about. There were unexpected appointments that were canceled, plans that fell apart, incidents that kept you from meeting that person at the very moment they were harboring impure intentions. That was not bad luck. That was my hand on your shoulder holding you back. I have slowed your steps many times so you could have more time to think, but then, not a few times, you grew annoyed, impatient, trying to find ways around those obstacles in order to get to the one you believed was the only one who understands me. You did not see that some of the joys you thought were blessings were in fact sugar-coated bait for a deeper pain waiting behind them. I am not afraid of you experiencing suffering because it is precisely in hardship that you grow, but I never want you to be crushed to the point of losing even your faith in love itself. Therefore, when I cut off a relationship, when I allow someone to leave your life in one way or another, learn to look at it not only with the eyes of someone left behind, but with the eyes of a child being kept safe from things they do not yet understand. In this world there are very beautiful corners, generous hearts, and sincere loves that reflect in part my light, but at the same time there are also regions thick with darkness, souls carrying wounds so deep that they only know how to hurt others as a way of surviving. There are men and women who use sweet words to build their own private worlds upon the tears of others. They reach out their hands, but not to lead you higher. They pull you down to the level of the wreckage within them. They are not entirely evil, nor are they demons, but they carry within themselves a chaos that has not been healed, and they choose to handle it by seeking more and more relationships, more and more attention, more and more victories in matters of romance. If you do not know how to protect yourself, you can very easily become one of the temporary pieces they use to cover over their inner emptiness. When you no longer give them the rush of novelty, the thrill of conquest, they leave, and they leave you with a void to which they do not even bother to look back. I see that whole picture in advance, and so I cannot remain silent. When I speak to you through intuition, through prayer, through a passage of my word that touches your personal story, I do not only desire that you hear it for information, but that you turn it into a rule of life, into a real turning point along your path. Hearing without doing is like someone who looks in a mirror and then forgets what their own face looks like. There is a brief stirring, and then you slip back into your old patterns. I do not want you to live on patched-together emotions, burning with determination to change one moment and going out like a flame the next because of a smile, a hug that softens you. I want you to begin fastening your life to a firmer foundation, to my word, to the truth about your worth, to the awareness of what you deserve and what you do not deserve to endure. Once you believe that I am your Father, let that faith enter into each concrete choice, which phone number you should keep, which invitation you should decline, which message you should stop answering, which picture you should not send, not because you are rigid, but because you are protecting what is sacred in yourself. I do not desire that you become bitter or full of hatred toward men or toward anyone who has ever hurt you. I simply invite you to open your eyes and discern who comes to build, who comes merely to consume, who steps in as a gift, and who appears as a test, so that you may learn to say, no. When you understand this, you will stop blaming me for closing doors, stop resenting me for taking someone away from you. You will begin to feel your heart grow lighter when you remember the words, "Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman stays awake in vain." If I do not protect your heart, all your efforts to guard it yourself can easily shatter. I am watching over you, even when you are unaware, but that guardianship is only complete when you are willing to cooperate, That is, when you choose to live according to what I have shown you, rather than merely nodding from time to time and then doing the opposite. You are still my child, no matter how many times you have misplaced your trust, no matter how many times you have brushed aside my gentle reminders. I do not love you any less because of that, but I want you to grow more mature right through those very falls. I want you to begin learning to ask me before you hastily open the door of your heart to someone. I want you to practice listening longer, observing more deeply, so that you can discern who knows how to take responsibility for their feelings and choices, and who only knows how to accept love without repaying it with respect. I will continue to remind you in ways that are uniquely tailored to you, but this time I long for you not only to be moved for a moment and then forget, but to dare to correct your course. For if you keep rushing toward the edge of the cliff just because of a familiar embrace, no matter how much it hurts me, I will not violate your freedom. I can only wait below so that when you hit bottom, you will still have enough strength to look up and cry, "Father, save me." I hope you will not have to fall that far, that you will choose to trust me right from the first steps, so that the warnings do not merely pass by your ears, but become light for your feet on this road filled with shadows and temptations. My child, I am quietly watching every small movement within your heart. I know very well that your heart is carrying a weight that even you yourself sometimes cannot name. It is not only a story of being let down or treated badly, but the feeling that the whole world inside you has just lost its support. You are confused, afraid that even worse things will suddenly fall upon you. You look at the cracks in your soul and sometimes mistake them for the whole of who you are, thinking that from now on you are only someone labeled, betrayed, unworthy of love. But I am different. I look deeper than every label. What I see in you is not a sentence passed, but a journey not yet complete, a story that is being written on with the very things that are causing you pain today. The love you once poured out your whole heart to hold on to, the people you once considered your everything who then turned their backs and left you, the nights when you tried to stifle your sobs so no one would hear. None of that is the final line on the page of your life. They are only the bends in the road that make you slow down, that make you ask questions, that lead you to ask yourself, were you born to live forever under such careless treatment, or to step into another kind of freedom that is higher and deeper? I hear even the words you do not say aloud, the evenings when you stare at the ceiling with empty eyes while your mind is crowded with questions. Is it my fault? Why do I love and receive this in return? If love always comes with pain, will I dare to love again? My child, I say this to you with all gentleness. What you have been through is not the final definition of who you are. Your wound is not the true name I gave you from the very beginning of your life. It is only like a bell waking you from a long dream you have lived in for too long, the dream that you would be saved by another human being, when only I can lift you up out of the deepest darkness. You were created to receive a different kind of life, not a string of days spent collecting new bruises. I have witnessed every time your eyes filled with tears, every tear you hurried to wipe away, not wanting anyone to see for fear they would judge you as weak. To the world, those are only fleeting moments. But to me, they are sacred, because in each drop that falls is the whole history of what you have endured, which no one else fully understands. I do not let them disappear into meaningless emptiness. I gather them and gently place them into the deepest part of my heart. And from the very moments when you thought you were shattering, a new resilience is being formed. You may not feel it clearly yet, because for now, when you look back, all you see is exhaustion and weariness. But I assure you that beneath that layer of tiredness, a quiet kind of strength is being forged. Not one of those dark experiences is wasted. On the days when you thought you were only trying to survive, I have been quietly rebuilding the foundations within you. What was arranged to crush you I do not allow it to succeed. I turn it into an opportunity for you to learn how to stand more firmly, to discern more clearly what true love is and what is exploitation wrapped in sweet words. You will no longer so easily allow just anyone to touch the deepest places within you without first proving they are trustworthy. Not because you have become rigid, but because you have come to understand the value of your own heart. What you now see as collapse will, in time, become experience. And one day, it will become testimony with which you can lift up those who come after you. Believe that not a single silent moment, not one of your lonely hours, is meaningless. Even when you sit alone, feeling surrounded by nothing but darkness, feeling that no one understands and no one stays, I am still weaving your life into a tapestry far larger than your own field of vision. All you can see is the needle tip touching the cloth, a few tangled threads with no clear pattern. But from where I stand, the whole design is slowly emerging. Every stretch you walk through, whether height or depth, is placed with intention, so that one day, when you look back, you can say, "It was not the easy things that made me grow, but the times I cried before the Lord and still chose not to let go of His hand." I do not want you to rush to conclude your life based on the chapter that is open right now, because the book I am writing for you is not finished. As you take one more step in trust, you will gradually see what defines you is not the wound, but the one who has held you all the while you carried that wound. And in my hands, your story will never end at ruin, but will keep moving toward healing, toward freedom, toward a new self who may bear scars but is filled with light. You will find that the days ahead feel like a rope being pulled from both ends. On one side is everything you have known, even though it once tore you apart. On the other side is the new path I am opening for you, still veiled in mist, but filled with the chance to live differently. Old habits, old people, old ways of thinking will whisper to you, "Stay here." At least you know what to expect in this place. They never tell you that this very place was once the pit that swallowed your joy, the place where you had to shrink yourself to fit the expectations of others, the ground that many times made you doubt your own worth. Do not be surprised if you feel torn. That is only a sign that you are truly changing seasons, and every change of season makes you feel unsteady at first. I do not blame you for still being attached to the old land. I only gently remind you, there, you so often made yourself small, just to be acceptable in the eyes of others, while with me, you are allowed to stand tall as my beloved child, not as someone who must forever prove they are good enough. The danger of what is familiar is not that it is so beautiful you cannot bear to leave, but that it lulls you into believing this is fine, even though deep inside you know you are paying far too high a price. Relationships that keep you constantly on guard, places where you must always shrink back, situations where you are always living with the question, will they leave me? These are not home. They are like old, stained walls that you have leaned on for so long that you are afraid to turn away, afraid there will be nothing ahead to hold on to. My child, the place I am leading you to is not an empty wasteland, much less a dark abyss, but another field, one that at first may feel so wide that you feel small in it, but it is where you no longer have to bend your back to fit anyone's mold. There, your peace is no longer controlled by the moods of others, but is anchored in a love that does not change. When I invite you to step out of the old place, I am not only telling you to leave, I have also already prepared new things to uphold you, even if for now you cannot see them. You will still have evenings when you lie staring at the ceiling and wonder, I don't know if I have enough strength to walk this whole path. I hear even the words you do not dare to speak out loud, that remain only as thoughts inside your head. You often misunderstand strength, thinking that the strong person is the one who never wavers, never cries, never feels weak. But in my eyes, the truly strong are not those who never tremble, but those who keep walking, even while their knees still want to give way. Strength is not a rush of excitement, but a small, steady resolve to choose the light one more time each day. There will be nights when you feel tired, when your prayer feels dry, when your future looks hazy. But if you still have enough courage to say to me, "Today I am tired, but I will not leave you," Lord, then, in that very moment, my strength is quietly holding you up. You may feel yourself growing, weaker, but within that weakness, my hand can more easily touch the deepest places of your soul. There will be times when you think, if I truly believed in God, why am I still this anxious? Is my faith too small? You then begin to condemn yourself for your very human feelings. You forget that even those I called by name in Scripture once trembled, once questioned, once wanted to turn back. Even when Jonah ran from my call, I did not abandon him in the middle of the sea. Even when Peter panicked in the storm, I still reached out my hand to pull him up. I do not demand a flawless faith without cracks. I ask only for an honest heart, one that dares to say, "I am afraid," yet still holds tightly to my hand. Wherever you feel yourself trembling, that is exactly where I desire to reveal my steadiness. You are not strong enough. That is true, and that is in fact good news, because only when you stop trying to make yourself your own foundation will you realize that I alone am the unstayed, solid rock on which you can stand. Do not let the voice of comparison discourage you. The tempter is very skilled at making you look at others and whispering, "Others got over it so quickly. Why are you so weak? Others have already opened their hearts again. Why are you still stuck here?" Each person has a different journey, a different wound, a different rhythm of healing. I do not use one person's measure as a ruler for another, nor do I ever use someone else's recovery time to conclude that you are too slow. I walk at your pace, like a father holding the hand of a child learning to walk. The child's falling again and again does not make the father disappointed. It only makes him bend down closer, more patient. The only thing I long for is that you do not let go of my hand to run after things that promise quick relief, yet drive you far away from true peace. You do not have to prove yourself by how fast you recover. You only need to be faithful to the step you take today. The place where you are standing now, I have already passed through. The territories you are still afraid of, I am already there. You can see only a very short stretch ahead of you, but I see the whole journey. You see a door just closed and think your life has collapsed, whereas I see behind it another way out, wider and brighter, which you would never have sought if that door had not shut. You feel exposed where you are now, with relationships sifted through pain and fewer arms around you, but I see you lighter, less entangled with what does not belong to you, ready to receive the people I will send, people who will love you more purely, more sincerely. Trusting me does not mean you have to understand every plan. Trusting me simply means daring to believe this. If today I allow something to happen, it is not to destroy you, but to set you free from something whose danger you cannot yet fully see. There will also be moments when you feel as though you are walking in a fog. You cannot see the destination clearly. You can only make out a few steps ahead. In such times you are easily confused and want to run back to the old place, cramped yet familiar, painful yet already known. I understand that feeling, so I do not ask you to run fast, nor do I force you to act stronger than you really are. I only ask you this: do not stop and pitch your tent in that gray land. Sometimes the only thing I ask is that you take just one more small step, even if it is a step taken in tears. You do not need to see the whole map, you only need to hold the hand of the one who leads you. Like Israel of old in the desert, they only had to follow the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. They did not know exactly which day they would reach the promised land. But they believed that as long as they were under my guidance, they would not be lost. So it is with you. You only need to learn to recognize my presence in each small thing, a word of mine in Scripture that touches you, a friend who appears at the right moment, a gentle consolation slipping into the midst of a pressure-filled day. You still think you are alone in every inner struggle, but in reality, I have been quietly there, in those very small voices within you that you often assume are just your own thoughts. Each time you are about to send a message that you know will throw you back into the old vicious cycle, and suddenly you feel a hesitation, a better knot that you can hardly name, that is not just intuition. That is my voice holding you back. Each time you are ready to accept an invitation that you know will leave you coming home with a heavy heart, and then unexpectedly you feel unrest inside, that too is me whispering, "My child, do not make yourself suffer anymore. My presence is not only in church, in hours of prayer and devotion, but also right in your very ordinary choices, where a small ray of light slips in among your tangled arguments. You think it is only the voice of conscience, but that conscience is precisely the place where I speak with you. I know there are times when you are so tired that you want to let everything go and think, fine, I will just go back to the old place. At least it will save me from this struggle. I am not angry with you for thinking that way. I simply remain there quietly, waiting for you to pour out all your irritation, weariness, and discouragement, and then I gently ask you, do you really want to relive the nights you lay there crying because you were belittled? Do you truly want to return to the place you begged me to lift you out of? I do not force you, do not scold you, do not impose on you, for true love never coerces. I simply remind you of what you have learned, of what you have paid for with your tears, of what I whispered to you in your darkest days. And I will keep on saying softly, just keep going, even slowly. Leave the rest to me. Do not forget that the peace, I promise, is not a passing feeling of excitement, but a deep inner state that helps you stand firm, even while the winds outside still blow hard. You may still tremble, still feel anxious at times, but if you let me be at the center, those storms will no longer have the power to toss you about as before. People may not yet understand you, may consider your choices foolish, may say, just go back and be done with it. But only you and I know what you have had to pass through to take the steps you are taking today. You do not live to please the crowd. You live to answer the call of the one who knows every beat of your breath. Each time you choose to remain with me, to keep your heart clean before yourself, to stay faithful to the light even when someone tries to lure you back into the dark, you are quietly sowing seeds that one day will blossom into a life that is more peaceful, deeper, and freer. And as you keep walking, even with tired feet, I want you to remember something very simple. There has not been a single second on this journey when you have truly been on your own. Even if no one understands the battle inside you, no one sees all that you are having to let go of, no one knows the nights you lie awake, I am still there, not looking away, not growing weary, not giving up on you because you are too slow. I am not like those who said, I love you, and then turned away when you no longer suited them. I am the one who loved you before you knew how to love yourself, and I will continue to love you even when you misstep, stumble, or even turn back to old paths. That love does not change, so rest assured, every time you take a deep breath, lift your eyes and silently say, Lord, I do not know what tomorrow will be like, but I choose to walk with you. My heart rejoices more than you can imagine. And I will say to you again, with a voice soft as a breeze yet more persistent than any wave, keep on walking, my child, I am here. There will be days when your heart feels like a room with all the lights switched off, with no more raging waves of emotion, no more floods of tears, only a heavy silence that makes you think I have gone away, that your prayers are falling into empty space, Yet it is precisely in those seemingly dull moments that I am working most deeply in your soul. When a storm has passed, the sea may look calm on the surface, but underneath an entire ecosystem is slowly recovering. So it is with your soul. After days of tempest, I lead you into silence, not to punish or forget you, but to make room to peel away, layer by layer, the distorted words you have unknowingly believed, so that I may rebuild you from within. For too long you have listened to the judging voices repeating in your head that you are a burden, that you are overly sensitive, that you always ask for things that are unrealistic, that you should be content with crumbs of attention, that you should be reasonable when others toss you a little half-hearted presents. Those words, especially when they come from those you love, have slipped deep inside and slowly hardened into a truth you press upon yourself. You begin to shrink back, to excuse other people's indifference, to condemn your own heart for wanting too much. But I speak to you in a very different tone. You are not wrong for desiring to be loved in a whole way. You are not excessive for wanting those beside you to know how to cherish, to be truthful, to take responsibility for what they say and do. You are not too much. You have simply entrusted that sacred longing to people who have not yet learned what it means to love to the full. I am the one who placed in your heart the need to belong, to be understood, to be cherished. So I never call those desires troublesome. I only want them to return to their true source, beginning with my love and then flowing out into your other relationships. When you allow me to love you, first, you will gradually realize that true love is nothing like what you once settled for in the past. True love does not make you question your worth every night before you sleep, does not force you to keep guessing what you did wrong today, does not push you to shrink yourself in order to fit someone else's mold. True love does not come like a beggar, appearing only when it needs something from you and then disappearing when you are the one who needs to be held and comforted. True love also does not mix sweet words with hidden sharp knives, does not call belittling you, "That's just how I am. You'll have to put up with it," does not hide behind excuses like, "I have a bad temper, I'm under so much pressure," or "You're too sensitive," to justify hurting you again and again. When you stand long enough in my light, when you allow my word to soak deep into you, the word that reminds you that you were created in my image, that you are my wonderful workmanship, you will begin to look back on what you once accepted with different eyes. You will no longer call those relationships that are controlling, suffocating and cold, normal. You will no longer dress up irresponsible, unfaithful behavior and label it, "Everyone has flaws." Instead, you will bow your head in tender sorrow for the former, you who settled for so little, who lowered your standards to the point of losing your inner safety just to keep a mere shadow by your side. Times of silence are when I teach you to discern which voice is mine and which voice comes from the wounds that have been accumulating for so long. My voice always lifts you back to your feet, no matter how painful the truth I have just shown you may be. I do not crush you under a vague sense of guilt. I do not tear you apart with hopeless verdicts. I do not drive you into a dead end with words like, "You are nothing, you are ruined forever." On the contrary, I remind you of the worth you have in my eyes, even when you cannot see anything praiseworthy in yourself. The voice of lies is different. It weighs you down, makes you feel so small that you think you must beg for every scrap of affection, makes you believe that if you stop enduring, you will lose everything. Sometimes that voice sounds like someone else. Sometimes it sounds like your own, because you have repeated those words so many times. That is why I desire quiet days with you, to draw you away for a while from the noise, to switch off the sources that scatter your mind, so that you can hear again the tone of truth, the whisper of the one who loved you before anyone ever had the chance to hurt you. You do not realize it, but day by day, as you try to walk in the light, I am gently and skillfully loosening the cords wrapped around your heart. You think you are just getting through the days, but in truth, every time you choose not to send one more message to cling to someone who no longer wants to stay, every time you intentionally withdraw from conversations filled only with complaining and negativity, every time you give your time to things that nourish your soul instead of drowning yourself in what only leaves you emptier, it is another moment when you and I cut through one more knot together. You are relearning from the beginning how to treat yourself, learning to honor your limits, learning to say, "That's enough," to whatever violates your inner peace, learning to be with yourself without calling it a failure. Many people have shaken you, but none of them has the right to define who you are. They only passed by for a short stretch of your life and left some scratches, but I am the one who has walked with you since the day you were conceived, and who will walk with you until your very last breath. My view of you is not distorted by flashes of anger, days of exhaustion, or passing selfishness the way human eyes are. I love you in the whole of your story, not only in the presentable chapters. There will come a time when you find yourself standing in a place completely different from where you once collapsed, and suddenly a breeze will carry back a few old memories. Strangely, this time you will no longer be dragged down as before. The images that once pierced you will now feel like pages of a book you have already read. You still recognize yourself in them, but you no longer live inside them. You will be able to look back at the times you were belittled, the times you were rejected, the times your efforts were not returned, and instead of sinking into bitterness, you will feel a deep, quiet gratitude that through those very things you learned how to lean on me. Through those wandering, unsettled days you came to understand that true peace cannot come from half-hearted acceptance or patched-together affection. You will give thanks to me, not because people treated you badly, but because right in the midst of those things, I drew you closer to my heart and caused a kind of strength to grow in you that you would never have gained if you had only lived in comfort. From then on, you will stop calling yourself a victim of the past and begin to see yourself as a survivor held by God's grace. The difference is immense. A victim keeps staring at what caused their pain and asking why. A survivor looks to the one who held their hand through the darkness and realizes, if it had not been for you, I would have collapsed long ago. When you change the name by which you call yourself, you also change the way you respond to life. You will no longer unconsciously draw to yourself the same kind of relationships again and again, the ones where you must prove your worth and keep persuading people to stay. But you will begin to choose peaceful ground for yourself, where you can be who you are without fear of ridicule or judgment. You will no longer throw yourself into love like a moth to a flame just to be accepted, but you will know how to pause, to listen to your own heart and listen to me. Where does this person come to you from? From their own need or from my invitation? That kind of maturity does not appear overnight, but it is quietly growing, and I rejoice to see you, day by day, learning to honor more deeply the very soul I have entrusted to you. Then there will come a season when even the small, ordinary things become reasons for gratitude. You will notice yourself smiling when you see the morning sunlight streaming through the window, feeling your heart lighten at the sound of birds singing somewhere in the crowded city, feeling at peace as you sit alone with a warm cup of water and do not feel lonely. Your sleep will grow deeper, no longer jolted awake by nightmares of being abandoned. In the morning you will wake not with the question, "Who will hurt me today?" but with, "How will I walk with the Lord today?" Joy will return quietly, without noise or display. It will come, like an old friend once lost, now silently sitting down beside you. You will recognize that you have begun to laugh not to hide your sadness, but because there truly is, deep inside, a kind of peace that is hard to describe. Only then will you fully see how long a road I have walked with you and how patient I have been. Do not think that day is still far away. it is drawing nearer with every choice you make to trust my word more than the words that wounded you. I patiently wait for you to let go, little by little, of the labels people have stuck on you, so that you can put on the name I gave you from the beginning. My beloved child, when you accept that you are a child, not a beggar for scraps of affection, you will allow me to be your father, the one who loves you, your healer, your potter. Do not be surprised when, one day, you yourself become someone who can hold other torn souls. Tell them about the road you have walked, about the one who carried you over every chasm, and speak to them with a gentle conviction. The one who did this for me will do the same for you. Then your pain will no longer be a stain in your history, but a testimony that grace is stronger than any brokenness. And you will know, deep in the core of your being, that none of the dark seasons you have passed through were wasted, because they led you to the place where you now stand, a place that is not perfect, but is filled with my presence, where you can live, love, rest, and give thanks, not because life has no more difficulties, but because you have found your true refuge. It is me, the one who has never left you, not even for a single day. My beloved child, when I contemplate your journey, what makes my heart ache is not only what others have done to you, but also how easily you have placed your whole heart into hands that did not know how to guard it. I see you trusting others with all your innocence, taking their words as truth, treating their attention as your source of life. You have thought that as long as you loved enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, people would surely value you, respond to you, and would not have the heart to hurt you. But, my child, this world does not operate according to your wishes, and not everyone can see the beauty I have placed within you. Many people come to you not because they recognize you as a precious gift, but because they feel you can fill some empty space in their lives, make them feel less lonely, less deprived, less hollow. And when they have been somewhat filled, they leave you lying there, exhausted, drained, unable to understand what you did wrong. You are wounded not only because others are weak, but because humanity has been deeply fractured at its very root. Since sin slipped in, the human heart has no longer been whole as I intended it to be. Fear, self-protection, the craving to possess, the desire to dominate have crept into every relationship. People love, but in that love there is so much calculation mixed in. People make promises, yet they are unaware that each promise touches the soul of the one who is placing their hope in it. People receive trust, yet they do not understand that in their hands they are holding an entire inner world, fragile, beautiful, and easily shattered. At times they do not intend to hurt you, but because their lives revolve so tightly around themselves, they are blind to what you are enduring. At times they see your pain and still choose silence, because facing their responsibility frightens them. Whether unintentional or deliberate, the result is the same. You carry deep, cutting wounds, while they walk away as if nothing truly serious has happened. I see all of this, and my heart aches even more than your bleeding heart. Precisely because I understand the brokenness weighing upon humanity, I call you not to live naively, handing yourself over to anyone who appears kind. I am not telling you to suspect everyone or to distrust every good intention. I only ask that you do not turn yourself into wide open ground for every passing footstep. Trust is necessary, but how to trust, whom to trust, and to what extent, that is what you must learn in my light. You must not hand your peace over to someone merely because they speak the words you are longing to hear. You must not place your joy, your emotions, your sense of worth into the hands of a person who is just as fragile, changeable, and prone to stumbling as you are. When you do this, you unwittingly build a shrine in your own heart to worship them, and you tremble with fear whenever they frown, grow cold, or fall silent. My child, your soul is a temple of the Holy Spirit, not a makeshift playground for feelings that come and go. I invite you to step out of that careless way of trusting and to learn another kind of trust, more mature, more steadfast, rooted deeply in me. The world is flooded with voices, and not every voice comes from truth. Many voices sound pleasant, gentle words of comfort, passionate declarations of love, glowing promises of a radiant future. People know how to use words to touch exactly the places of lack within you, making you feel as though at last someone sees you, understands you, lifts you up. But you cannot see what stands behind those words. It may be their own loneliness, their need to control, their desire to fill their own emptiness without any concern for what will become of you. Some hands reaching out to you look warm and steady, yet they are not offered to hold you and walk with you, but to pull you toward themselves, to the rhythm of their own steps, according to standards and expectations that only they are allowed to set. The more you cling to such a hand, the further you drift from yourself and from me. You must learn to step back and ask me, Lord, where do these words come from? Does this heart truly honor what you have placed within me? There are those who wear a cloak of kindness, who appear at the very moment you are weakest, saying things that make you melt and think, this must be the one you have sent. They seem patient, they message to check on you, they worry whenever you are sad. They speak very mature words about responsibility, the future, and sacrifice. Yet beneath that outward shell may be a heart that has never truly learned how to love. They are more accustomed to receiving than giving, to grasping than letting go, to demanding than offering. They may use their own painful story to stir your compassion, and from there use your goodness as a cushion for their inner insecurity. They may bind you with words like, without you I cannot live, making you feel important, while actually placing on your shoulders the responsibility to carry what they themselves must face before me and within themselves. Some will use the love you give to fill the dull gaps in their days. Some will use your hope as a source of motivation and then abandon you once they no longer feel the need. Some will treat your heart as a battery they can drain bit by bit. None of these forms of relationship come from me, for love that comes from me always builds up, sets free, and leads you closer to the truth. It never strangles, manipulates, or twists your soul out of shape. I do not show you these things so that you will fear everyone, shut your heart, and never allow anyone in again. I only want you to understand that in order to love in a healthy way, you must walk in the light, not in illusion. I have given you the gift of discernment. I have entrusted you with a conscience and intuition, my word, and my spirit, all to help you recognize which call is from the light and which invitation is darkness dressed as light. Whenever someone draws near and stirs your heart, learn to return to me first, to tell me about it, to ask my counsel, and calmly observe the fruits of that relationship. Is there peace there, or only anxiety? Is there respect or control? Is there honesty, or vague areas that cannot be named? Is there freedom, or invisible conditions? If you do not do as they say, you will lose them. The more you learn to ask such questions, the more you train your eyes to see clearly under my guidance, and the less you will give blind, unconditional trust to those who only know how to demand without knowing how to cherish. You often feel guilty at the thought of setting boundaries, as if doing so were selfish. But I tell you this, setting boundaries is not a lack of love, it is honoring my workmanship in you. When you say no to unreasonable demands, you are protecting the gift I have entrusted to your care, your soul, your body, your time, your energy, the dreams I have sown in you. If you allow anyone at all to step in and take as much as they please, you will soon find you have nothing left to offer to me, to those who truly need your love, or even to yourself. I want you to learn to stand upright and to value yourself, not because you deserve it by the world's standards, but because you are my child, the bearer of my image. People may look down on you and exploit your goodness, but that never diminishes your true worth in my eyes. As you begin to grasp this, you will start to live differently. If in the past you hurried to pour out every secret, every wound, every dream to someone who had only just entered your life, simply because you feared they would leave if there was not enough drama, now you will become calmer and slower. You will no longer need to prove your worth by giving until you are exhausted. You will no longer feel you must keep someone by allowing them to trample your healthy boundaries. You will know that true love does not need performances or grandiose oaths to impress. True love can stand in the light. It does not fear being examined. It does not force you into silence when you are in pain. It does not make you betray your intuition and my call. And only when you allow me to teach you this way, will you cease to collapse so easily whenever someone walks out of your life. My child, I tell you all these things, not so that you blame yourself for having trusted the wrong people, but so that you may understand that from today, you can learn to trust differently. I want you to know that the gift of wisdom is not a privilege reserved for a few special souls. It is a gift I am ready to give to anyone who asks, especially to those who have stumbled and long to walk more steadily. If you bring to me your misplaced trusts, your betrayals, your experiences of being used, I will not reproach you. I will lay my hand on each wound, breathe new warmth into it, and patiently teach you how to recognize who is truly sent by me and who is only passing through to give you a lesson and then move on. I will not let you wander forever in cycles of hurt so long as you are willing to return and allow me to take your hand. Remember this, only when you anchor your trust, first and above all in me, will you be free enough to love others without making them gods over your life. I alone am the one worthy to hold your soul, your peace, and the deepest joy of your heart, and every other relationship can find its rightful place only when it is set under that light. In this very moment, open your heart wide and speak honestly to me of your deepest longings, like a little child placing its whole heart in the hands of the Father. Almighty God, I come before you with a heart that has been wounded because I leaned on human beings more than I relied on you. I confess that many times I have allowed the words, attitudes, and acceptance of others to become the scale by which I measure my own worth, when it is you alone who fully know my true identity. Please open my eyes so that I may clearly recognize where I have placed my hope in the wrong places, and give me the courage to withdraw my heart from the places that are draining me. Help me no longer lull myself with fragile hopes, no longer cling to half-hearted promises or to affections that are no longer healthy. Grant me the courage to call the truth by its name, even when that truth hurts me, because I believe that only your light can set me free from the invisible bonds I have long mistaken for love. Most merciful Father, I have passed through days when it seemed I no longer had the strength to stand, and there were moments when I thought I would drown in humiliation, disappointment, and the feeling of being betrayed. Today, I hand back to you all those scars, the words that pierced my heart, the actions that belittled me, the times I was abandoned right in the very relationships I thought would be a place of refuge. Please lay your healing hand upon the deepest places of my soul, the dark corners I myself am afraid to look into, so that I no longer live in a state of constant vigilance, suspicion, or emotional numbness. Teach me to draw lessons from pain without turning it into a reason for hatred, to grow in maturity rather than thicken in bitterness. Help me to believe that, even when human hearts turn their backs, your heart remains forever open, and that not a single tear I shed falls without being seen and treasured by you. Lord Jesus, gentle and humble of heart, I recognize within myself a very deep fear of loneliness, to the point that many times I have accepted situations that hurt me just so I would not have to face emptiness. I have confused being treated badly with At least someone is there, and I have lowered myself in order to keep at all costs someone's presence in my life. Lord Jesus, please teach me to understand that being alone with you is still better than being beside someone who does not respect me. Set me free from the panic of walking alone, so that I may dare to pass through the valley of loneliness as a journey walked at your side. Grant me a heart that can savor silence as the space in which to listen to your voice, rather than see it as a frightening emptiness that must be hurriedly filled with any kind of relationship. And teach me to believe that in the very nights of stillness, you are closer to me than ever. Holy Spirit of love, consoler and guide of my soul, please kindle within me the strength to choose the hard but truthful path instead of slipping into the easy but deceitful shortcut. At the crossroads of life, when on one side there is quick comfort and the promise of a fleeting peace, and on the other side a journey of rebuilding my life on the foundations of faith and integrity, grant that I may recognize which way leads to true life. I beg you to free me from the temptation to deal with my sadness by returning to what once drained me, simply because I am afraid to begin again. Grant me the faith to walk step by small step, even when my eyes cannot yet see the destination, trusting that you are guiding me. Give me the courage to say no to invitations that deny what I have learned with you, and to dare to say yes to steps that may seem slow, but are set upon the solid ground of your word. Lord, you who transform what is broken into a source of life, I offer you the whole story of confusion, collapse, and rising again that is my life. Please use precisely those stretches of the road over which I have felt so ashamed and wanted to keep hidden, and turn them into a bridge toward those who are faltering in the same kind of darkness. Teach me to listen to others with a heart that has itself been comforted, to support them not from a position of superiority but from deep empathy. I have been through that too. Please use my words, my gaze, and even my compassionate silence to sow in shattered hearts the hope that they too can make it through. And remind me always that I can only become an instrument of peace if I myself remain closely united to the source of peace, who is you, not placing myself at the center of the story, but always pointing back to you as the only one who can heal completely. God, source of all truth, I thank you for peeling away the layers of illusion I once clung to so tightly. I know that allowing the truth to surface has meant that you let me experience pain, yet it was a necessary pain that saved me from a deeper wound later on. I praise you because you did not let me continue drifting in a muddied, murky kind of affection, even though many times I begged you to keep that for me. I thank you for giving me the courage to see clearly the face of selfishness, deceit, and exploitation, not so that I would despise others, but so that I would no longer deceive myself. Thank you for awakening me from a dream that seemed sweet, but was in fact draining my soul dry, so that I could step into a new and purer journey, even if its first steps are filled with tears. Beloved Father, I thank you for the years of waiting that seemed useless but have turned out to be a precious time in which you reshaped my heart. If everything had happened according to my own will, at the moment I desired, I might have gone on carrying wounds that had never been touched, gone on placing my trust carelessly, gone on seeing other people as my savior. I thank you that through the slowing down of my life, you have taught me to live more deeply, to listen to my inner self, to ask, "What do you want, Lord?" before rushing after my emotions. Thank you because the years I thought were delays have in fact been the stretch where you quietly reset the foundations of my life, so that later I might build things that are more lasting, more wholesome, and less dependent on the sudden changes of the human heart. Lord, source of hope that never fades, I thank you because you did not allow my story to end at the wound, but continued it in peace. I praise you for using days of brokenness to teach me to have greater tenderness toward myself, greater compassion toward others, and a more mature trust in you. I thank you for turning my mistakes and wanderings into living lessons that I can now share with troubled hearts, as a testimony that your grace is stronger than all my failures. Finally, I thank you because, though I have many times misplaced my trust in mere mortals, you have patiently waited for me to set that trust back in the right place. In your heart, you, who never betray, never abandon, and can always renew everything that seems ruined in my life, I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that, together, we can build a strong and vibrant community of faith.